Let's go ahead and watch this swing in full motion. What you're going to see is what a lot of amateurs do. You can see that he's looking at the target, and it looks like he's looking about out here somewhere. And then he's even going to check to see if he's on line by pointing the club at the target. Check.
Line 2.
See that?
Pick a target.
Pointing out there.
Okay.
But now that he's getting set up, you can see he's way to the right of it. And he hits a really fast swing. Let's go ahead and go back.
Where you aimed.
Let's go back to that setup. And you can see that I can't even see his lead arm in this setup right here. He's aimed so far to the right that he's going to be in trouble. But let's go ahead and put the swing plane in to see what happens. Now let's go forward. Let's go fast. So he's going to do the point thing again. Looking up, moves around, trying to find a comfortable posture. Points to his target. But you can see that he's still left of that. I mean right of that. What do you think? This is our third right-hander of the weekend. Left-hander of the weekend. Let's go ahead and watch the swing now. Ready? It's done a lot of moving around here. Lack of confidence. Let's watch the takeaway. Here we go. Taking the club to the inside. Because his shoulder was so far... Now, look where his shoulder's going. There's no way his shoulders now are pointing anywhere near the golf ball, are they? He hasn't gotten any rotation downward. It's all level and flat. So see what happens as he continues on through. Very athletic guy. Look how strong he is. Drops the club in nicely. Now he's kind of in an awkward position. You can see that doesn't look right either. The left elbow is not behind the swing. His shoulders are well open. Clears away nicely. So mainly it's just some little tiny mechanics. This is a guy that's very athletic. Every other sport's been easy with him. This one's going to take some time. He can't just hustle his way to a good swing here. All the athleticism in the world doesn't work unless you have right mechanics. We see some really good things with this setup. Notice that the lead arm is above the trail arm in the setup. That's how it's supposed to be. Very nice knee flex there. Chin is up. Back is nice and straight on the lower back. Arms are pretty comfortable hanging down under the chin. Notice that it appears that the lead arm is hanging more straight than the trail arm. That's correct because it is inside. To double check your grip, just take your lead arm, drop it off. It should swing right back to where it was. This is a really good setup. So let's go ahead and watch the swing. We'll draw in our important swing plane here. We'll watch the takeaway. By the way, this is a golfer that's only been golfing a couple of weeks. A little too far to the inside, but the hands are doing okay. So what she would do is set the club a little earlier to keep the club up on plane. But I like what the hands are doing. Perfect position. Right there, she's on the plane. Let's try to get the left shoulder a little lower here, more towards the golf ball. Right about there is where she should stop. She's in a perfect place here. The face of the club and the forearm of the lead hand are parallel. She's ready to go here. But then she goes just a little bit further and kind of collapses the lead arm. Notice how bent it is. Again, we look at this line right there. We want that arm straight so we can go back and find the golf ball without having to hunt for it. So now she's going to go back down. And by the way, take a look at that golf ball. See how deep in the ground it is. She's in a hole. So she's going to start back down to the golf ball. See, she drops the club on the plane. A little bit of a head movement there. To see that? Drops the club on plane. But right now she's doing what's called casting. The club head is moving further than her hands are moving. We need the club head to move less distance in the early part of the swing to create lag. At this point now, the club should still be almost at 90 degrees straight up. But notice it's already releasing the club. She hasn't moved any energy forward. She's still back on the back leg here. You can tell that from her posture. So she's probably going to hit a little fat. Oh, there she goes. Smashes fat. Good bunker shot, by the way. If we want to do bunker play, that's the way to do it. But what creates the fat shot is that casting of the club and absolutely no forward momentum. She's going to hate this shot because it hurts her hand so much. Both arms are pulled in tight. No forward momentum at all. Right to a swing, and she's still on her back foot. Good athletics, but we need to get the weight transfer into the front leg. Now she's been kind of hindered by, I think, the operation to her front knee, total reconstruction. Now, for the second week of lessons, this is awesome. We have a very tall golfer. You see this a lot with tall golfers, and they have a tendency to kind of round their back out a little bit and then turn the shoulders in instead of having the shoulders back more even with the ears. Notice how the shoulders are pushed way in. So it looks like he's at the 30-degree angle. But if we simply draw another line in on his lower back, you'll see that he's almost straight up and down. So we need to help him get a little bit better setup. Fundamental number one is our posture. Let's go ahead and watch the takeaway here. Too low. See that right there? We're taking the hands way to the inside. Club's way behind him here. Really a flat takeaway. It's going to be very hard to get back to the golf ball with any kind of accuracy. So let's watch what he does here. Goes back real deep to the inside. Gets a good setup. And then probably will... Oh, he's dropping the club down nicely. He's got himself back on plane. Oh, then he just went... See, right there he's on plane. If he'd have continued rotating down to the target line, in other words, if he'd have stayed going down that line, he'd have been fine. But watch what happens. Right there. He goes forward. He opens the club face because he separated his lead arm right there. The lead arm is separating from his body. You can see the lever of the trail arm is now pointing out to the right. Can you see that? If we look at this angle of the trail arm, this angle here, it's not going in the right direction, is it? It's forcing in the wrong way. So we're going to move into the shot. He does a good job of throwing it out, but he catches the ball way in on the heel. See that? See, the ball's been caught in on the heel, and he's going to smother it and hit a low shot. There it goes. See, the ball's not getting any air at all because he hit it on the heel and kind of smothered it. So what we've got to do is we've got to get him to stay more behind the ball and get those hands back down to the setup position. When the hands go up higher, there's less loft on the club. To increase loft, we have to have the hands coming in lower. We see some great setup angles here. His target, he says, is the 150 stake, which is sitting right there. So he's lined up perfectly for that. The feet are left of it. Could have the shoulders a little bit more parallel to the feet. Notice that I can't see the lead arm from this position. That tells me his shoulder's a little bit behind him. So probably we'll pull it a bit. But let's take a look and see what goes on. Let's draw in our little swing plane here. Good takeaway. Look at that. The club is staying right on the swing plane. Taking a little bit to the outside. I love the look of that. Above the swing plane. Now if you can just drop it back to the inside, there's where the problem is. We get to this position here, and because our left shoulder isn't low enough, our swing now is going to go on this line. Whoops. Our swing is going to go on this line because that's the shaft angle. It's going to be hard to swing it lower than that because that'll just throw everything off. So at this point, if we'd have got the club rotated more that direction, let's put a little arrow on that direction, so the club was more parallel to the ground and parallel to the target line, I think we'd have had a better downswing. So what he's done is he's restricted his backswing too much so that he can't get back to the golf ball. Let's see if he goes back on the red line or the green line. Red line. See that? So what's going to happen is he's going to hit it with a slightly open face and pull it to the left. Notice where the ball is. It's going left of the target. Pretty decent finish, though. So we want to work on closing the gap there to there. Get that blue line, get that red line closer to the green line, which means we need to get the green line a little higher, the red line a little lower. Now here's something we don't see very often. Two lefties side by side on the range. The golfer is aiming for this little target area right there. He's got a pretty good setup for that. The hands are in a good position. The chin is up. The back is fairly straight. Let's go ahead and draw our swing plane in to see how he does. Nice swing plane there. Let's go ahead and put a line this time down behind his butt just to see if he stays in that position right there during the swing. So we're going to take, notice he's staying right there, very solid. Look at the hands. Hand going right up the red line. What I do see, though, it's probably hard for most of you to see, is I think there's a tension in this swing, because what happens is the club doesn't seem to there, and then he collapses right there. He was doing really good up at that point, but now you can see that the the right arm in this case, bent. Got to keep that arm straight. Everything was really good to there. We got a great shoulder turn. Just work on keeping that arm straighter. It's going to make a big difference, and a little less tension in your swing. Now let's see if he drops the club down, back on the slot. Now it's coming over the top. See that? Instead of dropping the club down on that line, he's going to go that way with the club. So we want to go down the line instead of out that way. So the club has to come down. That's because he overswung to the top. So he's going to pull across it a little bit and hit a little flare. What's going to work out, though, is that he's going to get a fade right back to his target line. But he loses a tremendous amount of distance, and obviously a little balance there, because he swung so hard to the right that his balance went forward or to his left. Here we have a brand spanking new golfer. She's also learning how to row, what do they call, fireboats? Or dragon boats, I'm sorry. What we'd like to see a little bit of a change in the setup. I'd like to see the club shaft a little lower and then up. So the hand should be a little bit more down from that angle right there. Other than that, we've got a great setup here. Good straight back, chin up, very athletic. What we're going to see here, though, this is just a practice swing, because she's very patient. She's willing to swing a lot of times without a ball. But we're going to watch. She lifts the club up. You can see everything's lifting. Head, spine, hands, everything is lifting the club up. And then she's rotating the hands over. So the hands are going up, but the club is kind of dragging behind because it's a little bit heavy. And notice we have this kind of this bowing of the lead arm, bending of the lead elbow. There we go. There's a lift of the swing. The head's up, the spine angle's lost. So we're going to get her to work on a little bit more of a turn rather than a lift and a dive. Look at the rotation there, though. Look at this. Looks like a golfer right there. Great finish. Great finish. I like the finish. One of the things you can see at this setup is that his shoulders are pretty far to the right compared to where he's going. He told me he was aiming to a little spot where this flag is right here under his chin. So his feet aren't bad, but it looks like his shoulders are left of that. I'd like to see his lead arm actually above his trail arm a little bit here. Let's go ahead and draw in the swing plane. See how he does on the swing plane. I'm going to start the club back. Remember, it's got to stay above the swing plane. That's good. But then he comes up well over the top. See how he's coming over the top? And he's throwing the club. You can see the club is bending back at an angle that's that way. That shows you the energy is going that way rather than down to the golf ball. If it was down to the golf ball, the arc would be in a different direction. Also, you can see that the club face is wide open at this point here. It's going to be very difficult for him to get it to close in time to make good impact position. So let's see what happens. We're going to bring the club down low. It's going to come slow. That wasn't very slow. Down. See how he's coming across it, lifting up out of the shot. See how much he's lifted up? That instead of turning the hips into it, he's kind of lifting up out of the shot. The ball's going to go weakly off to the right. You can see that what he's done, he's actually hit the ball kind of on the toe of the club. The club at this point should be going more down the target line than it is. So we're just going to work on that a little bit and see how he does. This is really a pretty good setup for diameter. The back is pretty much to 1 o'clock. I like to see the bill of the cap a little more upright, pointing above the ball instead of at the ball. It means the chin's tucked in. Doesn't leave any room for the left shoulder to drive down. But let's go ahead and check the swing plane here. Notice I can see his lead arm above the trail arm. Great positioning here. Helps make a better takeaway. See what I mean right there? The hands are staying right on the swing plane. The club is going a little bit to the inside, but that's only because he's over-rotating the left arm on the way back. A little bit of flying elbow. This width here that we see between the two elbows, we want that width at the top of the backswing to be the same as it was at setup. And that's not going to happen there because they're much wider. So let's go ahead and watch the downswing. Drops the club in nicely. Look at that. Drops it in. It's coming in. The club's a little outside the hands there, so it's going to a little bit cut across it. That's why it's going to pull a little to the left. And again, no forward momentum. There hasn't been any weight transfer into the front side until after the swing, and then he loses his balance. Okay, let's watch this golfer. Let's see what happens here. We got a pretty decent setup. Should be a nice swing. Club's going a little too far to the inside. The hands are staying nice. When they go to the inside and the hands stay nice, it means he's rotated his hands too much. Now look at the left foot coming up. That's going to raise everything up with it. Remember, the backswing is a downloading process. We're getting ready to leap, drive down into that golf ball and fire ourselves at the golf ball. What he's done is he's raised up out of that swing. So when he comes down, it's hard for him to get back to exactly the same position, so that his hands, now they have to figure out where to go. And what he does is he tops the ball and drive. What we're seeing dirt is from the ball being driven into the ground by the leading edge of the club. The hips haven't rotated at all. He's kind of stuck. And he's pulling the hands in close right here because the right hip hasn't gone through. There's no rotation of the lower body at all. Nothing at all. So we need to get him to get the hips rotating through to the target. Okay, the hands are a little bit high. We'd like to see him at a little lower angle to the golf shaft here. So we'll run this plane up here. Then we'll go ahead and run another line from the hips up through the ear. So she's standing a little upright there. We'd like to see her bend over more, a little bit more towards 1 o'clock. But let's watch the takeaway here now. See what happens. Staying pretty good there. Now she's lifting. Now what we want to see is the left shoulder going down towards the golf ball more. The left shoulder is up pretty high. So what should happen now, she should come up over the top a little bit of the swing and pull her arms in. So what she's doing, she's pulling her arms in and swing way outside the ball real high because the club now is way above the swing plane. And her arms are actually lower than they were at setup. So we've got to keep her spine set a little bit better and let that club go to the ground. Really a decent swing, except for that ground ball situation where we're not hitting the ball in the ground. Okay, we got a golfer here starting in a pretty good position. One of the things we're going to notice, though, is on her takeaway, she takes the club really far to the inside and then loosens her grip at the top of her backswing. A lot of amateurs do that, trying to get the club to be a little more released. A little too far to the inside. Notice the club is still real shut to the target line. Now watch as she goes up here. Watch what happens right about there. She's completely let go of the club. The hands aren't on the club anymore. She's let go of it. The club is released flat to her shoulder. There's no extension and no width to the swing, which makes it really hard to get any power. So then she's going to come flipping the club back over, and she's going to cast the club at the ball. See how she's losing all of her angle because the club head is going faster than the hands right now. They're not supposed to go faster than the hands until you're at the impact point where it releases through. And then she catches the ball on the heel, on the way up instead of on the way down because she hasn't got any momentum going forward and no club leg. Okay, this is our fellow that's trying to play a little Mo Norman style. He could actually have his hands a little higher and have the club a little straighter to the forearm if he wished. What this swing is facing the ball at impact. You're going to fold and unfold the trail arm. Let's watch how he does here. Okay, takes the club back. It should be just a folding. See how the left arm folds. Club kind of comes up, stays above the red line. And at this point, if up here, he needs to drop the club back on that line there so that it can be back on the plane. So if he would just tuck the left elbow in a little bit, drop the club head a little bit behind him at this point here, he would drop the club back on the plane and he wouldn't have to swing to the inside so much. But good contact, solid swing. Here we see a young man in pretty good posture. I'd like to see the back maybe a little bit flatter, but his arms are hanging down nicely under his chin. If you notice this angle here, that's a very good angle for setup. So let's go ahead and draw the swing plane in. Okay, we're going to draw that in. We're going to stay slightly above that. It's not bad. Notice that his hands are still on the swing plane. He's coming up. A little bit of lifting there. We see that a lot with our amateur golfers. They tend to swing on the way up. They think it was an upswing. Look at the lag he's generating here on the downswing. Very, very nicely. If he'd have dropped his hands a little lower, back to where they were at setup, that would have been great. Good power. Look at the head right there, looking, just staring straight at that golf ball. Right on through, right on through. Now, if we could get his foot up, show me some spikes, squash the bug, we'd have a pretty good swing going on there. The red line is the swing plane. The blue line is where it appears that he's aiming. And I know he's not intending to go that far to the right. But you can see that his feet are pretty much on that line right there. What's going to happen here is as he takes the club back, let's do that a little slower, takes the hands back pretty nicely, pretty close to the swing plane. Then what's going to happen is he's going to have to dive over the top to try to get the ball to go left of where he's set up. See that? So he's trying to go left, trying to pull that ball to the inside. He's trying to get to the left, but he's lost his entire spine angle at this point right there because he can't hit the ball to the right like he's set up for or be over the fence. So we got to get him to work a little bit on that alignment so that he can swing more freely out to right field to hit the ball to center field.